Ever since the coronavirus crisis inflicted the world, churches have been put in a hard position. Stay open or close, care or freedom. I have a pastor here who will help shed some light on this conflict. Folks, I'm here with my pastor and friend, Glenn Meredith of Brookhaven Church. Pastor Glenn, I feel for you pastors because you guys are stuck between a rock and a hard place. On one point, we want to show care and love to people, worry about their safety and make sure they're safe. On the other hand, there's religious freedom and there's desire for people to do what Hebrews 10:25 says, to not give up gathering together. Right. Tell us a little about the struggles that pastors have to make a decision and how different answers meet different needs.
Right. Well, Nathan, we are, as a pastor, most of us are not medical professionals, at least I'm not.
No? Really? You're not?
Yeah, so,
okay.
The truth of the matter is, as a pastor, I don't know any more about what's going on than all of our audience here today. We're all reading it. We're all bombarded every day with conflicting information.
In the beginning, it was masks are useless. Now everybody needs to wear a mask. 6 feet apart. 6 feet apart doesn't matter. Go back to school, don't back to school. Exactly. Society is very confused.
So you have all this conflicting data going on, and then you've got people in our churches that have very strong opinions on various positions on this. You've got people who feel like that this is really not that big a deal, that it's really being overblown. And so, that there's a political agenda behind it and on both sides perhaps. And then you have other people who are very scared. They're terrified. They're worried about their own safety. They're worried about the safety of their family and friends. And then you have others who feel like that this whole thing is a religious liberty issue.
Absolutely.
And so, so you have all these strong opinions, and yet the church is put in the position where this is not a definitive thing. Do we meet in person this week or do we meet online? So how do you make the wise decision? And so it's very difficult to make wise decisions when you don't even know that the data you have is correct.
Absolutely.
And so what I believe the most important thing for our audience here to remember as you are in a church, remember this. Romans chapter 14 is dealing with this whole issue of meat offered to idols in the first century there. And Paul is basically saying, there's more than one way to look at this. And whatever you believe, you may have strong values and strong opinions about it. Whatever you believe, for the sake of the unity of the church, for the sake of the kingdom of God, don't judge one another, but rather whatever you have a personal conviction about, fine, but keep that to yourself between you and God. What I would say is I think it's very important that our churches strive for unity, that even if your church takes a position that you don't personally agree with, give them the benefit of the doubt that they're doing the best they can do with the information they have, take in all the circumstances that you probably don't even know all about, and give them some grace, pray for them that they'll have wisdom, and then whatever the decision of the leadership of the church is, support it. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I love that, because as pastors, I feel for you guys, you're really between a rock and a hard place about this. From a prophetic perspective, we know that when the rapture of the church happens, God's restraining influence from the church, through the church, will be taken off this earth, and the earth will descend into chaos. And out of that chaos, the Antichrist will rise, promising peace and create a global government. It almost seems, and I want to know if you agree with this or not, that when the COVID came, the churches complied and they kind of silenced. Obviously, they're all meeting online, but their impact physically in the neighborhoods and the towns seemed to be gone. But then all of a sudden, anger and violence and chaos and almost an overthrow of countries around the world happened. Do you believe that God is using this to give the world kind of a taste or a glimpse of what happens when the church isn't present?
That's actually a great application. I hadn't really thought of that, but then that's kind of your area of expertise. So, but anyway, yes, I think that's a great application of that. And I do know this. I know God is using this coronavirus. And in fact, Nathan, I would just like to say that I believe that this may be one of the greatest opportunities the churches have ever had to extend the kingdom.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is in the United States, prior to COVID-19, 80% of the churches were either plateaued or declining.
That's true.
Even in Collin County, which is where we live, Collin County, Texas, this county has exploded in growth over the last decade. And while the county was exploding in population, 80% of the churches in Collin County plateaued or declining, which means what we were doing was not working.
Okay.
But all of a sudden, it's like God has hit the reset button. It's like all the things we were doing, we can't do anymore. Okay. And now all of a sudden we have this blank slate. But too many churches are sitting around going, man, we can't wait to get back to normal. Well, we don't need to go back to what we were doing. It wasn't working. This is an incredible opportunity God is giving to the church worldwide to say, Lord, what do you want to do now? What's next? And if our churches would seek Him and say, Lord, whatever you want us to do, we will do. This could wind up being the greatest catalyst, I believe, for revival and for the harvest in the kingdom, maybe that the church has ever witnessed in its history.
Wow. Wow. Well, folks, that's exciting news. The church is still on the move until the Lord calls us home. Remember that. And also, cut your pastor some slack there. He's got a lot of pressure. God bless.